I'll say it plainly. Nothing breeds suspicion in a partnership faster than one partner holding the books. It usually starts innocently. One partner is better with numbers, so they handle the accounting. Division of labor makes sense. But run that forward a few years. Now one partner sees every dollar in real time, and the other sees whatever it is they're shown, whenever they're shown it. Accelerant number 1, avoiding the hard conversations. Notice the cruel irony in the timing. The hard conversations get postponed precisely because things are pleasant. Nobody avoids a conversation with a partner they're already fighting with. There's nothing left to protect. People avoid them with partners they like, in businesses that are working, because the pleasantness feels fragile and the question feels like a hammer. No partnership ever blew up over the thing partners say it blew up over. Ask anyone who's been through one. They'll tell you it was the fight about distribution, or the fight was about the new hire, or the fight was about the money that got spent without a phone call. And they'll be wrong. Not lying wrong, but wrong. Because the stated fight is only the spark, the fuel that was poured months earlier, sometimes years earlier, quietly, a little bit at a time, by two people who liked each other, or more, and they liked each other too much to say anything. That's what this episode is about. The anatomy of the explosion. Because partnership blow-ups aren't random or mysterious, take them apart and you find the same 5 pressure points every time. Money invested, time spent, control, access to information, and equity, with the same 2 accelerants poured over on top. Avoiding the hard conversations and leaving decisions out of writing. 5 pressure points, 2 accelerants. That's the whole recipe. And once you know it, you can spot the fuel before the spark ever shows up. Back in episode 2, we talked about how to build a partnership, how to think about it as a contract, how to ask the 3 big questions before you sign anything. This is the companion episode. That one was how do you build it? This one is why they burn down. The fight that ends a partnership is almost never the problem. It's just the first time the problem got said out loud. I'm Eddison Titus, and this is Law, Land, and Capital, where we talk about the legal, business, real estate, and capital issues serious people need to understand before things go sideways. Quick word before we get into it, and you'll hear this every single episode, so you'll probably get tired of it, and it's because it matters. What you're about to hear is general education and commentary. It is not legal advice, and listening to this show does not make me your lawyer. No attorney-client relationship is formed here. Partnership law is state law, and the default rules, which is what happens when you haven't agreed otherwise, vary meaningfully from one state to the next. So if you're in a partnership or about to be in one or trying to get out of one, sit down with the lawyer licensed where you are. All right, let's take this thing apart. I want to start with an analogy, and I want you to take it more seriously than analogies usually deserve. A business partnership is like a marriage. Not kind of like one, structurally like one. Think about what they have in common. Both begin in optimism. Nobody starts a business and nobody gets married expecting the ending. Both are easy to enter. In a lot of states, you can form a partnership by accident, just by acting like partners. And both are expensive to leave. In money, in energy, in years of your life you'll never get back. And here's the deepest similarity. Both of them run on 1,000 unwritten assumptions. Who handles the money? Who makes the decision? What happens if one person's circumstances change? In a marriage, you assume your way through those questions every single day, and it works. Until the day your assumptions and your partner's assumptions turn out to be 2 different documents. Notice something else. In both relationships, the dangerous conversations, money, control, what happens if we split, are exactly the ones people postpone the longest. Because things are good. because raising the question feels like an accusation. So the conversation waits and waits and waits some more. And in both cases, the legal system has already written the rules for your breakup. If you divorce without a prenup, your state has a property regime waiting for you. If your partnership dissolves without an agreement, your state has default partnership rules waiting for you. In Texas, it's under the Texas Business Organization Code. So, who owes what duties, how profits split, how the thing winds up. In neither case are those rules the ones you would have chosen. They're the rules a legislature chose for a hypothetical average couple or a hypothetical average partnership that doesn't actually exist. Here's the difference, and it makes business partnerships more dangerous, not less. People getting married at least stand up in front of witnesses and say vows, a moment where two people state out loud what they're promising each other. Business partners usually skip the vows entirely and go straight to sharing a bank account. A partnership is a marriage where nobody wrote the vows and everybody assumes the other person did. So let's walk the 5 pressure points one at a time. Pressure point number 1, money invested. Who put in what? And what does that entitle them to? It sounds simple, but it never is. Money comes into a partnership in more than one form, and the forms don't feel equal to the people providing them. There's cash, clean, wired in, easy to count. There's credit. The partner didn't write a check, but signed the personal guarantee, who put their house on the line rather than their savings. And there's sweat. I didn't put in cash, I put in 2 years of my life, and I'm counting that as capital. Here's the composite for you. Darius and Cole open a small logistics company. Darius puts in $80,000 of cash. Cole puts in no cash, but he signs the guarantee on the equipment loan and builds the whole operation with his hands. The routes, the customers, the software. 2 years in, the company is profitable. Now ask each of them separately who really funded this business. Darius says, I did. I'm the only one who wrote a check. Cole says, I did. His check would have evaporated without my guarantee and my hard work. Both are telling the truth as they see it. And they've never once discussed which truth the partnership actually runs on. That's the mechanics of this pressure point. It isn't the money, it's the unresolved question of what the money entitles you to. Does cash come back first before profits? Does a guarantee count as a contribution? Does sweat convert into ownership? And at what rate? Every one of those questions has a reasonable answer. But if nobody chose one, each partner quietly chooses the answer that favors them. And resentment starts compounding, silently, like interest on a debt nobody admits exists. And unacknowledged is the key word. Contributions that feel unequal and unacknowledged are the fuel. A partner can live with putting in more. People do it all the time. As long as it's named and valued and reflected somewhere. What they can't live with is putting in more while the deal pretends everyone put in the same. Pressure point number 2. That's money's twin. And in my experience, it burns hotter. Time. Here's the classic shape of it. 2 partners start out equally committed. Then life does what life does. One of them, call her Priya, ends up in the business full-time, 60-hour weeks. She's there when the pipe bursts. She's there when the key employee quits. She knows every customer by name. The other partner had every intention of being just as involved, but he's got another venture, or a demanding day job, or a family situation. And gradually he becomes the partner who shows up once a month, asks good questions, and goes home. Nobody did anything wrong yet. Circumstances drift. That's normal. The problem is that effort drifted and the reward didn't. They're still splitting profits the way they agreed on back in day one, back when the plan was equal effort. Priya is doing 80% of the work for 50% of the return, and every month that gap gets wider and more obvious to her. Her partner genuinely doesn't see it because from where he sits, the deal is just running the way the deals run. The failure isn't the drift. The failure is having no adjustment mechanism, no agreed way to say, when effort and reward come apart, here's how we true them up. A salary for the working partner, a shifting split, a periodic review, any of those works. What doesn't work is silence because with no mechanism, the drift itself becomes the grievance. Priya stops thinking we should adjust this and starts thinking, I'm being taken advantage of. And once a partner has told themselves that story for a year, no spreadsheet can fix it. Money remembers exactly what it put in, and time remembers even better. Pressure point number 3, control. The question here is deceptively simple. Who actually decides? Notice I said actually. Most partnerships have 2 org charts, one on paper, the titles, the co-founders, the managing partner, and then the real one. Who signs the checks? Who the employees actually listen to? Whose yes means yes? When the 2 match, fine. When they don't, you've got a partner with a title and no authority, or authority and no title. And both are grievances on a timer. Then there's the deadlock problem. 2 partners, equal say, and they disagree about something that matters. Take on debt or don't. Fire the manager or keep him. If there's no tiebreaker, the business simply cannot decide. And a business that can't decide doesn't stand still. It decays while the partners re-argue the same question every week with a little more heat. And here's the version that surprises people. The silent partner who suddenly isn't silent. A hypo. Angela puts money into her cousin's construction business. Your money, my management, loosely spoken. For 3 good years, that's how it works. Then the business hits a rough stretch. Distributions stop, and Angela, watching her capital at risk, discovers she has opinions. Strong ones. About bidding, staffing, the truck the company just bought. Her cousin is stunned. You were never involved. Angela is equally stunned. It's my money. Neither is being unreasonable. They just never decided in writing what a capital partner's voice is when things get hard. Silence about control works beautifully right up until the moment control matters. The fix isn't complicated in concept. Decide the decision rights. Which calls can each partner make alone, which need both signatures, and what breaks a tie. It's a 5-hour conversation on the front end versus a 5-year fight on the back end. Pressure point number 4, the quiet one, access to information. I'll say it plainly. Nothing breeds suspicion in a partnership faster than one partner holding the books. It usually starts innocently. One partner is better with numbers, so they handle the accounting. Division of labor makes sense. But run that forward a few years. Now one partner sees every dollar in real time, and the other sees whatever it is they're shown, whenever they're shown it. One partner has the picture, the other has a summary of the picture, prepared by the first partner. Hypothetical. Tomas and Rick run a property services company. Tomas handles the field. Rick handles the office and the books. In this hypothetical, Rick is completely honest, just disorganized and a little territorial. Tomas asks for the financials. Rick says, I'll pull those together. And 3 weeks pass. Tomas asks again. Rick gets defensive. Do you not trust me? And feel what just happened. I want you to feel it. An honest delay has become indistinguishable from concealment. From the outside, a partner hiding something and a partner who's merely lazy about transparency looks identical. That's the brutal asymmetry here. Transparency is cheap, shared account access, a standing monthly summary, books either partner can open at will, But opacity is expensive because opacity is read as concealment even when it's just laziness. Once a partner starts wondering what they're not being shown, everything gets reinterpreted through that lens. The delayed report isn't late anymore. It's suspicious. And know this, the law generally takes a side here. Partners typically owe each other duties of good faith, and access to the books is among the most basic rights a partner has. Specifics, of course, vary state by state. But don't rely on the legal floor. Build transparency into the routine so nobody ever has to demand it, because the demand itself is already a wound. In a partnership, whoever controls the information controls the story, and the other partner knows it. Pressure point number 5, equity. And here's the strange thing about equity splits. They're usually the most permanent decision in the whole partnership, made in the least serious moment. Over dinner, in a truck, let's just do 50-50. 5 minutes tops. Nothing set in 5 minutes lasts longer than an ownership percentage. Think about why that's dangerous. Everything else in a business gets revisited. Budgets, strategies, staffing, all of it comes up for review. Equity almost never does because reopening it feels like an act of war. So whatever number got picked on day one hardens, and if the number stops matching reality, it doesn't get fixed. It becomes a permanent grievance the partners just live inside. And let's talk about the most popular split of all, 50-50. I understand the appeal. It feels fair. It feels like friendship. It dodges the awkward question of who's worth more. But understand what you're buying. 50-50 feels fair, and it guarantees that when you really disagree, there's no answer. No majority, no tiebreaker, just two people holding half the votes staring at each other. 50-50 isn't a decision structure, it's the absence of one, dressed up as fairness. Equal ownership can work, but then you must build a deadlock breaker somewhere. Somewhere. Because the equity itself will never break a tie. One more equity trap, granting ownership for promises instead of performance. A hypothetical. Jenna starts a marketing firm and gives her friend Marcus 30% because he's going to bring in big clients from his network. Not for clients he brought, for clients he's going to bring. 2 years later, the network never materialized. Marcus contributes little, and he still owns 30% of everything Jenna builds, forever, unless he agrees to sell it back. But why would he? Equity granted for a promise ages badly because the equity is permanent and the promise wasn't. If ownership is paying for future contribution, tie it to the contribution, vesting, milestones, and earn-in. Pay for what shows up, not what's promised. Now step back, because here's the thread running through all 5 pressure points. Any one of them alone is survivable. Businesses limp along with murky equity splits or lopsided workload all the time. The explosion comes when 2 or 3 of these compound. Unequal money, plus drifted time, plus one partner holding the books, and nobody names any of it. That stack of unnamed pressure is the fuel, which brings us to the accelerants. Accelerant number 1. Avoiding the hard conversations. Notice the cruel irony in the timing. The hard conversations get postponed precisely because things are pleasant. Nobody avoids a conversation with a partner they're already fighting with. There's nothing left to protect. People avoid them with partners they like, in businesses that are working, because the pleasantness feels fragile and the question feels like a hammer. Which conversations? The unequal effort conversation. I'm working more than you, and it's starting to matter. The disappointing numbers conversation. The changed circumstances conversation. My life is different now, and I can't give to this what I used to. And the biggest one, I think I might want out. Every one of those is a manageable business topic on the day it first becomes true, and every one of them curdles into something else when it waits. Here's the mechanism, precisely. An avoided conversation accrues interest. Two kinds at once. The issue compounds, the workload gap widens, the numbers worsen, the partner who wants out disengages a little more each quarter, and the goodwill you'd need to resolve it depletes. Because the silent partner isn't just staying silent, they're keeping score. The problem grows while the relationship's capacity to absorb it shrinks. You are, quite literally, paying compound interest on silence. And the pattern is so consistent, you can set your watch by it. Silence, then assumption, then resentment, then blow up. Nobody says anything. Each partner fills the silence with assumptions. He must know he's not pulling his weight. She'd say something if she minded. The assumptions ferment into resentment. And then one day, over something small, a late invoice, an offhand comment, it all comes out at once. By the time an avoided conversation finally happens, it isn't a conversation anymore. It's an indictment. Not let's talk about the workload. For 3 years, you have taken advantage of me, and here are the counts. No partnership negotiates well against an indictment. So what's the discipline? Almost embarrassingly simple. Schedule the uncomfortable conversations on a calendar, not on a crisis. A standing meeting, quarterly, twice a year, where the agenda is the hard stuff by design. Are contributions still balanced? Is the split still right? Is anyone's life changing? Does anyone want out? When the question is on the calendar, asking it isn't an accusation. It's a Tuesday. That one habit diffuses more of these explosions than any clause I could draft. Accelerant number 2, leaving decisions out of writing. First, let me clear away the objection I always hear. If I ask my partner to put it in writing, it looks like I don't trust him. Let's kill that idea. Writing is not distrust. Writing is a shared memory. Here's the truth about human beings. Memory is not a filing system. Two honest people, genuinely honest, both of them, will sincerely remember the same handshake differently. Not because either is lying, but because memory does not record, it reconstructs. Each partner replays the conversation with themselves as the reasonable one. And every replay bends the recollection towards their own interest. Give it 3 years, and they hold two incompatible deals, each backed by a clear conscience. A written record is the one memory the partnership can consult that doesn't have a side. So what gets written? Start with the foundation, and this is the callback to episode 2. The partnership agreement is the constitution, the bedrock. Contributions, who put in what and what it entitles them to. Roles, who does what with real authority mapped to real titles. Decision rights, which calls need one signature, which need all, and what breaks a deadlock. Distributions, when money comes out and in what order. If you've listened to this episode, you'll recognize that list. It's the 5 pressure points answered in advance on paper. That's not a coincidence. And if you remember episode 3, you already know the spirit to write it in. A contract is a battle plan, written for the day you hope never comes. The partnership agreement is exactly the battle plan drawn up for you. If you've listened to this episode, you'll recognize that list. It's the 5 pressure points, answered in advance on paper. That's not a coincidence. And if you remember episode 3, you already know the spirit to write it in. A contract is a battle plan, written for the day you hope never comes. The partnership agreement is exactly that battle plan, drawn up for the people closest to you. But, and this is the part people miss, the founding agreement isn't enough. A constitution you never amend stops describing the country. The habit that actually protects you is documenting material decisions as they're made. Partner takes a salary now, write it down. An email both of you confirm is enough to start. Equity split adjusted, a big purchase approved, a loan from a partner to the company, write it down. Date it, keep it where both of you can find. 2 paragraphs today, while everyone agrees, beats 2 lawyers later when nobody does. If it matters enough to argue about it later, it matters enough to write it down now. Let's collapse this whole episode back down to one idea. It's been circling from the start. Partnerships don't blow up over a single event. They blow up over unspoken expectations that were never reduced to writing. Everything we've covered is a variation on that sentence, the frame. One more time. 5 pressure points, money invested, time spent, control, access to information, and equity. Every partnership explosion I've ever seen traces back to at least one of them, and usually to 2 or 3 compounding in the dark. And 2 accelerants that turn pressure into detonation. Avoiding the hard conversations while everyone still likes each other, and leaving decisions in the air instead of on paper. So here's what to actually do. 3 takeaways. First, audit your partnership against the 5 pressure points today. Money, time, control, information, equity. For each one, ask whether you and your partner would give the same answer about how it stands. Anywhere you're not sure, you found fuel. Second, have the hard conversation while you still like each other. Goodwill is the currency these conversations spend, and it's worth the most before you need it. Put it on the calendar. Third, write it down, all of it. The foundation and the running decisions. Not because you distrust your partner, but because you respect the partnership enough to give it a memory. Do those 3 things and you won't have a perfect partnership because those don't exist. But you'll have something better than perfect. A partnership where the pressure gets named while it's still cheap to fix. Because here's the truth underneath all of it. Partnerships don't die from disagreement. They die from everything the partners agreed never to talk about. Next time on Law, Land, and Capital, the business side of raising capital. What it really costs to take someone else's money and what you're actually selling when you sell a piece of your company. If you've ever thought about bringing in outside money, you'll want that one. If this episode was useful, do 3 quick things for me. Subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. Share it with one person who's in a partnership right now. You probably already know who. And if you want the show notes and the resources, use the link below. Like, follow, and subscribe. And if you need a consultation or referral, call the Titus Law Firm. Law, Land, and Capital is owned and produced by Tadamco, LLC, all rights reserved. And one last reminder, everything you heard today is general education, not legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is formed by listening, and partnership rules vary state by state. So talk to counsel licensed in your jurisdiction before you act. I'm Eddison Titus. Thanks for listening, and go have the hard conversation.